have a package in my room that I have yet to open. And I actually got this package while I was making my previous video. But since I was still working on my video at that time, I had no other choice but to leave it on my desk. The thing is, this isn't some regular package. This package was sent to me by Monsgeek, and as many of you already know, they were the ones that made one of the best budget-friendly keyboards called the M1. Now that the keyboard scene has changed over the years, with companies making really good budget keyboards, Monsgeek has finally released the latest version of the M1, the M1 V3. The M1 V3 is a 75% aluminum gasket-mounted keyboard featuring an exploded layout designed with both simplicity and functionality in mind. Just like the previous versions, the M1 V3 has south-facing LEDs and is fully hot swappable. The knob will now have a levitating structure to avoid scratching of the casing. The keyboard comes with pre-installed plate-mounted stabilizers, but for those who prefer a more secure feel, screw-in stabilizers are also provided at no extra cost. The M1 V3 supports both Mac and Windows and is QMK and VIA compatible. As a barebones kit, the M1 V3 requires you to supply your own switches and keycaps. Monsgeek does offer an option to add 90 switches directly from their site if you need them. Monsgeek actually sent me their new linear switches called the Akko Rosewood. These switches have a nylon stem, PA12 blend top housing, and a PA6 bottom housing. They are lubed from the factory and have an actuation force of 40 grams and a travel distance of 4 millimeters. The M1 V3 is wired only and does not support Bluetooth or wireless connectivity. There is an M1W V3 version which does support wireless connectivity, and you can get it either in the barebones or fully assembled kit. But do note that it does not appear to be compatible with VIA. There are a few new colors you can get for the M1 V3: the Dark Night, Moonlight White, Lilac Purple, Pastel Pink, and Horizon Blue. The wireless version only has Dark Night, Moonlight White, and Lilac Purple. You can purchase the M1 V3 on Monsgeek's website starting at $69.99 US. The wireless version will start at $84.99. If you want to check them out, I provided both links in the description below. Here's a closer look of the packaging for the switches. Now it's time to take out the box. Here we have the box that contains all of our accessories. We even get a plastic cover for our keyboard. And we also have the user manual. Now let's get this keyboard out and let me show you the Horizon Blue colorway. But before I show you more of the keyboard, let's see what kind of accessories we have. In the box we have a coiled cable, screw-in stabilizers, a switch puller, keycap puller, tape if you want to do the force break mod, gaskets, and extra screws. It's crazy to think that for only $70 you get a lot of accessories. Taking a closer look at the keyboard, the main difference this has with the previous version is that Monsgeek took out the side gaps. On the bottom of the keyboard, you can see the branding and the model number, as well as a small engraving of the logo. It also has 4 rubber feet and 6 screws that we'll need to unscrew in order to access the inside. So let's go do that right now. So once we got all the screws out and the knob finally off, we can take a closer look at the internals of the board. I will be using the screw-in stabilizers, so we will need to unscrew the plate from the PCB. The plate mounted stabs are very easy to take out and you will only need to use a tweezer. I've already prepared the screw-in stabilizers and we will just need to screw it on the PCB. For the first configuration, we will be using all of the foams provided so we can have a rough idea on what it sounds like straight out of the box. But before we put everything back together, we will use the tape for the force brake mod. And this is what it looks like after the force brake mod. Now the only thing left to do is to put it all together. Then we can flip the board over and screw the bottom case. Lastly, we can put our switches and keycaps. I don't really have much to say about the stock configuration because it basically just sounds like every other foamy keyboard. Especially when we put on the HMX Cloud switches, it sounds very marbly, and a lot of people seem to like that. For the second configuration, I was genuinely surprised by the no foam sound test on the M1 V3 because typically with budget boards, removing the foam results in a drop in clarity, but the M1 V3 doesn't seem to be affected as much. And for those who prefer a clacky sound signature, when I added the SWK Catmints, I did not hear any ping or hollowness. So if that's something that interests you, maybe no foam could be your go-to. The third configuration with no case foam sounds almost like the stock sound test. The PE foam is very prominent in this configuration and it may be a little bit louder than the first one. Overall, it's not a bad sound signature from just taking out the case foam. The case foam and PCB foam configuration is one of my favorites because it gives the keyboard a balanced sound signature. It's not overwhelmingly thocky and not super high pitched either. You can add in the PE foam if you prefer that sound signature, but I personally like to hear a somewhat accurate sound of the switch itself. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with what I don't like about the switches and the keyboard. The Rosewood switches didn't really blow me away. It's far too quiet for my preference, and it's as close as you can get to a silent switch. As for the board, there wasn't anything that made me dislike the board, but if I were to nitpick, I wish the knob would have a bit more like tactile feel. The knob isn't as satisfying as something like the QK75N. Also, I think the side profile is a bit too simple, and I wish they just added a bit more flair. So with all of the negative feedback, I do want to mention some of the positive things about the Switch and the keyboard. Aside from the lack of volume from the switches, they were actually really smooth. The factory lubing was pretty consistent, and overall they were just very comfortable to type on. I really like the color combination of the Switch, and it could actually be a very good pseudo-silent linear without sacrificing like the mushy feeling you get from actual silent switches. As for the keyboard, I loved how flexible the keyboard is. Like, not in terms of the gasket mounting, but the way it handles different configurations. Like, no matter what configuration you use, it seems to perform really well and it sounds really clean. So who is this keyboard for and would I recommend it? Well, if you already know what your preference is and you've been in this hobby for a while, this keyboard is probably not going to impress you too much. I think this keyboard is perfect for someone who is getting into keyboards and wants to experiment with different sound profiles. The M1 V3 is very versatile and can pretty much do any configuration without losing clarity and sound. Also, the disassembly is pretty straightforward and anyone starting out should have no problem modifying this on their own. So if you are new into the hobby and you're deciding on getting this keyboard, I highly recommend you messing around with the foams to see what you like. If you made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you for watching. This took me some time to make and I really appreciate all the support I've been getting for the past few weeks. I'm really interested in what you guys think about this keyboard, so leave a comment on what you like or dislike about the keyboard. And yeah, thanks.